Have you seen the reports that the subcontractor that you use to make that door piece that fell out of the sky, that when the FAA went and toured the facility, they found one door seal being lubricated with Dawn liquid dish soap?
Flights canceled and planes grounded. The investigation into the terrifying mid-air emergency on board an Alaska Airlines jet is expanding tonight.
They called it routine assembly until pieces started tearing off 16,000 feet in the air. We thought Boeing planes were the safest in the world until they opened them up.
The Boeing 777X is the world's largest twin jet ever built. Its enormous engines and unprecedented wingspan promise to bring unbeatable fuel efficiency and usher in a new era of high-capacity long-range flying.
What they found inside nearly every aircraft shocked even the experts. Loose bolts, missing parts, and cracks in the structure that has defied all explanations. But how did all this go unnoticed for so long? Could your next flight be at risk? So before you board another plane, join us as we reveal the chilling truth behind these flying giants. You won't look at air travel the same again. The shocking discovery. It started like any other day. Flight 1282 had just taken off from Portland, Oregon, heading for Ontario, California. It was a routine evening flight. The weather was calm, no signs of trouble. But just 3 minutes after takeoff, at around 16,000 feet, the cabin depressurized violently. A massive piece of the aircraft's fuselage, specifically the door plug, a panel designed to seal an unused emergency exit, ripped off with explosive force. Passengers described the moment as surreal and horrifying. A mother frantically clutched her child. A teenager seated near the opening had his shirt torn from his body and his phone ejected from the cabin. No one was seated directly next to the plug, miraculously. Had the flight been full, someone might have been sucked out completely. And as expected, what followed was controlled chaos. The pilots quickly descended. The oxygen masks dropped. The flight returned safely to Portland in under 20 minutes, but the real panic began after the landing. You might want to pay more attention from here, because it gets even more intriguing. The National Transportation Safety Board launched an emergency probe. Boeing's reputation was already shaky after the 737 MAX crashes in 2018 and 2019.
Boeing has pledged $100 million to help victims' families and communities impacted by the crashes of two 737 MAX jets. But as Chris Van Cleve reports, this may not be Boeing's only payout.
And now this. What they found was almost unbelievable. 4 bolts, meant to secure the door plug, were never reinstalled. The plug had been removed at Boeing's Renton factory to fix damaged rivets. After the repair, the panel was put back, but the bolts were left out. Now, this wasn't a mystery. It wasn't sabotage. It was just not done. The FAA immediately grounded 171 Boeing 737 MAX 9s, demanding urgent inspections. Mechanics across the US and Latin America opened up panels, ran their hands along rivets, and looked at door plugs. But guess what? What they found was even more chilling. They found loose bolts on several planes, incorrect torque on fasteners, and evidence of incomplete or undocumented reinstallation steps. One United Airlines mechanic reportedly said, "We found issues on more than one aircraft. It wasn't just Alaska. We were all holding our breath." This wasn't a freak accident. It was systemic. But here's where it gets even more disturbing. Boeing's internal tracking system didn't log the door plug removal at all. There was no documentation that the bolts were reinstalled, and no independent inspector caught it before delivery. Investigators later learned that Boeing was under pressure to meet production deadlines. The Renton factory had been running behind schedule, and workers were allegedly told to get the planes out the door. According to internal sources, mechanics flagged concerns, but were ignored or silenced. And door plugs weren't even considered flight-critical systems, so some inspections were skipped altogether. This wasn't just a bolt issue, one investigator said. This was a culture issue. Boeing quickly tried to do damage control, CEO Dave Calhoun appeared on camera and said, "They own it. They're going to fix it and make sure every airplane in the sky is safe."
Senator, I meet with the FAA pretty regularly. They don't hold anything back, and I'm not aware of anything that has been cited with respect to those accidents that we haven't taken action on.
But public trust had already been damaged. The FAA limited Boeing's ability to increase 737 MAX production until major safety reforms were made. The NTSB continued its investigation, and early findings called Boeing's quality control process broken. Now, if bolts can be left off a brand new airplane, what else is slipping through the cracks? If inspectors aren't catching this, what are they catching? A door plug came off in the sky, and only by sheer luck did no one die. But what if it wasn't just one plane? What if Boeing had been warned and ignored the signs? A history of warnings ignored. Undoubtedly, Boeing didn't end up here overnight. The door plug blowout may have shocked the public, but to people inside the industry, it felt like the latest symptom of a deeper illness. A slow decline that began years ago when Boeing shifted focus from engineering excellence to production speed and profit. The first signs appeared long before Flight 1282. In fact, the roots can be traced all the way back to 1997, when Boeing merged with McDonnell Douglas. That merger, quietly celebrated on Wall Street, quietly worried longtime Boeing engineers. McDonnell Douglas was known for cutting costs and maximizing margins. Boeing, until then, was known for meticulous safety and bold innovation. After the merger, many former employees noticed a cultural shift. Financial decisions began to override engineering ones. Risk assessments were rephrased to avoid delays. Managers who raised safety concerns found themselves sidelined or ignored. These changes stayed mostly behind the scenes until 2018. That October, a brand new Boeing 737 MAX 8 operated by Lion Air crashed into the sea just 13 minutes after takeoff from Jakarta, Indonesia. All 189 people on board died. Investigators were baffled because the plane was modern, the weather was good, and the pilots were experienced. Just 5 months later, in March 2019, another 737 MAX 8, this time flown by Ethiopian Airlines, plunged into the ground near Addis Ababa. Again, everyone on board died, and 157 people gone.
The Ethiopian Airlines, everyone on board died. 157 people, passengers and crew, everybody. What caused this? Early days, details are few and far between, but the culprit, it seems, is Boeing, the maker of this plane.
It was no longer a mystery. Both crashes were caused by a software system Boeing had added to the MAX, MCAS, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. It was designed to correct the pitch of the plane automatically during climb, but the system relied on a single angle of attack sensor. If that sensor failed, the MCAS would push the nose down again and again, no matter what the pilot did. Boeing hadn't properly informed airlines about MCAS. Some manuals didn't even mention it. Pilots weren't trained on it. And worst of all, internal emails later revealed that engineers had warned leadership about MCAS vulnerabilities long before the first crash. The public was horrified, but inside Boeing, many workers felt something closer to despair. In the years that followed, a series of whistleblowers came forward. Among the most vocal was John Barnett, a former quality manager at Boeing's South Carolina plant. He'd worked at the company for over 30 years. In interviews and legal testimony, Barnett revealed that oxygen systems had failed quality checks at alarming rates, up to 25% in some cases. He also described finding metal shavings in sensitive wiring areas of jets, and claimed they were being left there even after he flagged the issue. He said Boeing retaliated against him for raising concerns. His mental health suffered. Still, he kept speaking up. In 2024, as he was preparing to testify under oath again, Barnett was found dead in a hotel parking lot. Authorities ruled it a suicide, but the timing and the contents of the case sparked outrage. Aviation forums and industry insiders openly questioned whether enough had been done to protect him, or if the weight of being ignored had simply been too much. Other whistleblowers described similar experiences. One technician said he witnessed workers using incorrect bolts and then falsifying reports. Another claimed tools were regularly left inside wings or tail sections. Several said they were told not to log minor problems that would delay aircraft delivery. One anonymous former employee stated, "If it wouldn't cause an immediate crash, they told us to leave it, the plane has to go." Outside Boeing, airlines were noticing issues too. United Airlines mechanics reportedly found loose bolts and incomplete installations during routine checks, even on newly delivered jets. Some quietly stopped accepting certain MAX deliveries until they could double-check everything themselves. Even Spirit Aerosystems, one of Boeing's largest suppliers, has faced scrutiny. Spirit builds major parts of the 737 fuselage. In recent years, they've reported increasing production errors, from misaligned panels to damaged rivet holes. At one point in 2023, the company announced it had found non-conforming fittings in several fuselage components already delivered to Boeing.
Boeing's supplier, Spirit Aerosystems, they discovered 2 rivet holes that were misdrilled on 50 fuselages, 50 of the tubes, if you will, of the planes.
Regulators were also raising flags. The Federal Aviation Administration, following the MAX crashes, admitted that it had allowed Boeing to certify some of its own systems internally, a policy meant to streamline processes, but which now looked dangerously flawed. Lawmakers accused the FAA of being too cozy with Boeing. Despite all of this, production continued. Deadlines were met and planes were delivered. Then came the door plug blowout. And suddenly, all the ignored warnings, all the near misses, all the whispered concerns felt like pieces of the same puzzle. The MAX 9 that suffered the failure had been inspected just weeks earlier. The plug had been removed at the Renton plant for minor rework. Yet somehow, no one reinstalled the bolts. No paperwork documented the removal. No checklist flagged the issue. It looked like it slipped through again. After the incident, a senior FAA official stated that they were deeply concerned about a lack of control in Boeing's quality systems. NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy called the failure preventable, saying it wasn't a fluke, but the result of poor oversight and lax culture. Boeing promised to do better. They issued statements. They cooperated with inspections. But for critics, it all sounded familiar, too familiar. Because the truth is, this wasn't the first time Boeing had been warned. This was just the first time the sky opened up and showed the world what had been ignored. How did this even happen? After the terrifying door plug incident on Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, the world wanted answers. But the more investigators pulled back the curtain, the clearer it became. This wasn't about a single bolt, a single worker, or even a single plane. This was about the system that built those planes. And that system was deeply broken. Boeing's 737 MAX aircraft are primarily built at their Renton facility in Washington state. It's a sprawling site that produces dozens of aircraft monthly. These aren't just any planes, they're the backbone of short and medium-haul travel around the world. The pressure to deliver them quickly is immense. When production is running at full speed, one plane rolls off the line every few days. Mechanics work long shifts under constant deadline pressure. Many say they're proud of their work, but recently, some have admitted that pride is being buried under stress. After the door plug incident, a whistleblower from Renton told investigators that Boeing had a massive backlog of unfinished work. Mechanics were regularly told to skip steps to keep production moving. The door plug on Flight 1282 had reportedly been removed for rivet repairs, but no official record showed it was ever removed or reinstalled. But guess what? That's not just a clerical error. In aviation, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. To understand how this mistake could happen, you have to look at how a modern jetliner is built. Boeing doesn't build every part itself. In fact, over 70% of a Boeing 737 MAX is built by outside suppliers. The fuselage, the long central body of the aircraft, is built by Spirit Aerosystems in Wichita, Kansas. It's then shipped by rail to Renton, where Boeing workers attach the wings, engines, and systems. On paper, this system increases efficiency. In reality, it creates huge blind spots. Every contractor has its own documentation, parts management system, and deadlines. If a panel is installed improperly in Wichita, Renton might not notice. If a bolt is missing in Kansas and no one logs it, the plane still moves forward. It's a bit like building a skyscraper with parts made in 10 different countries, then expecting them to all snap together perfectly. After the MAX 9 blowout, one phrase kept popping up in internal Boeing memos and FAA reports: undocumented work. Here's what that means. Mechanics were making changes to planes, removing parts, reinstalling panels, adjusting hardware, without logging those steps in official records. But why skip documentation? Because logging a fix requires extra time, extra signatures, and often an inspection. All of that slows down production, and in Renton, time is money. This leads to a chilling reality. Even Boeing itself doesn't always know what's been done to its own aircraft. According to insiders, the biggest problem wasn't a tool or a part, or even a worker, it was the schedule. Boeing promised airlines a certain number of planes per month. Those airlines had their own schedules, their own bookings, and their own investors. Missing a delivery date could mean millions in penalties. That pressure filters down to the production floor. And even when inspectors did catch problems, some weren't corrected the right way. In 2023, it was revealed that Spirit Aerosystems had delivered hundreds of fuselages with improperly drilled holes. Instead of pausing production, many of those issues were adjusted on the line. Internally, Boeing launched its own investigation and committed to making changes. They created new roles to oversee quality culture, including hiring a former Navy admiral to help instill accountability. But critics argue these changes are too little, too late. Employees inside the Renton factory told journalists that managers still prioritized speed. Some even said morale was at an all-time low. Workers didn't feel empowered to speak up. But why were those bolts never reinstalled? The simple answer is no one checked. Or if they did, they didn't report it. The deeper answer is more troubling. According to insiders, the digital system Boeing uses to track aircraft parts and inspections, called CMES, doesn't always require detailed work logs. A mechanic can remove something without triggering a mandatory checklist if no one flags the removal. There's also evidence that the door plug in question was reinstalled by mechanics at night, when fewer supervisors are present. The reinstallation wasn't documented, the inspection didn't happen, and the bolts, still sitting in a tray somewhere, never touched. By now, the pattern is clear. This wasn't a one-off. This was a cultural failure. And even now, months after the incident, dozens of planes have failed follow-up inspections. Issues range from loose components to structural misalignments. Boeing has promised to fix them, but many in the industry are wondering, if a missing bolt can make it onto a commercial flight, what else is Boeing missing? And more importantly, what does this mean for you? What this means for you. You've heard the numbers, you've seen the reports, but let's bring it home now. What does all of this actually mean for you, the average passenger, boarding a plane for a weekend getaway, a business trip, or to see family across the country? The truth is, what's happening behind the scenes at Boeing, and in the aviation world as a whole, has a direct impact on your safety, your time, your wallet, and your peace of mind. Because when a door plug blows off mid-flight, it's not just a Boeing problem. It's a wake-up call for the entire flying public. Let's start with the most important question. Is it still safe to fly on a Boeing 737 MAX 9? The answer, thankfully, is yes, for now. After the Alaska Airlines incident, The FAA and airlines around the world launched a full re-inspection of every affected aircraft. Planes that didn't pass inspection were grounded. Bolts were checked. Procedures were updated. No one is taking chances anymore. But that doesn't mean passengers aren't worried. Searches for terms like "Is the Boeing MAX 9 safe?" spiked in the weeks after the blowout. Some travelers even started requesting to fly on Airbus aircraft instead. Even if flying is still statistically the safest mode of transport, confidence has been rattled. And when people feel uncertain, that changes everything, from airline choices to booking behavior. Plus, following the grounding of all MAX 9 aircraft, airlines like Alaska and United were forced to cancel hundreds of flights. Some passengers were stranded. And remember, these weren't old planes being pulled off the line. These were brand new jets, some delivered just weeks before the incident. For airlines, that's a logistical nightmare. For passengers, it's a reminder that when manufacturing goes wrong, the disruption ripples all the way to the boarding gate. And it's not just cancellations. Inspections take time, and retrofitting procedures slow everything down. Boeing's output is now under FAA oversight, meaning airlines may not get the new planes they were promised on time. So if you've noticed fewer available seats, higher ticket prices, or last-minute aircraft swaps, this is part of the reason. However, the Boeing crisis isn't just a safety issue. It's an economic one. Airlines that don't receive their planes on time have to lease older jets or shift routes. That costs money, fuel efficiency goes down, maintenance costs go up, and passenger complaints rise. And guess who eventually pays for that? Yes, you guessed right. Ticket prices may increase, especially on routes where the MAX 9 was heavily used. Airlines might cut amenities or reduce frequency on certain routes to make up for the losses. The Alaska Airlines door plug failure might have started with 4 missing bolts, but now it's impacting airline schedules, pricing strategies, and customer satisfaction around the world. Should you be worried? That's the uncomfortable part of this conversation. You shouldn't be scared to fly, but you should stay informed. Incidents like the MAX 9 blowout are extremely rare. Aviation regulations exist to prevent tragedies. And since January 2024, regulators have been far more aggressive in inspecting planes and holding manufacturers accountable. But the fact that this happened at all, after 2 deadly crashes, after years of reforms, after countless promises, shows that systemic issues still exist. Many aviation experts say this isn't about a single aircraft type. It's about a broken culture of complacency at Boeing and a regulatory system that didn't catch the cracks until the public was put in danger. So yes, you can fly, but you're right to ask questions, and you may be wondering what the airlines are doing differently. Here's what major U.S. airlines have done in response to the Boeing quality crisis. Alaska Airlines have grounded all MAX 9s, ran full bolt inspections, updated maintenance logs, and demanded greater transparency from Boeing. United Airlines conducted their own internal audits and slowed the acceptance of new deliveries. Also, Delta, American, and Southwest reviewed safety inspection processes fleet-wide to reassure customers. Consequently, some airlines are now training their own mechanics to double-check Boeing's work before any plane enters service. Others have added extra inspection stages beyond FAA requirements. They're no longer just trusting what's on paper, they're verifying it on the aircraft itself. Because when systems fail quietly, it's the public that pays the price loudly. And this time, the public is watching. That's the end of the video. But what do you think? Do you think Boeing have truly learned from its mistakes? Or are deeper issues still hiding beneath the surface? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click on the following video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.